Welcome to the Electrical and Electronic Engineering Lecture Series. Your anchor person is Professor Michael Sindinechi. Our topic is types of and structure of general purpose computers part 2. Please follow in this lecture series by subscribing to my YouTube channel at https://@ndinechimichaelc. Also, like and share, drop your comments in the comment section, or reach out to me using my email address. You can listen to the introductory lecture on computers in Module 006 at the link. You can also listen to Part 1 of this module at the link given. You can copy the link and place in your browser to open the lecture. So today we are continuing with the components of a computer system. And if you recall, in our module 006, I differentiated between a computing machine and a computer system. I said that a computing system requires the addition of software to be at its optimum performance. For a computer to work effectively, three things must be present. The first, the physical computer must be there. Secondly, there must be the presence of the software that will make the computer to execute the functions required of it. And thirdly, somebody has to issue the command to the computer. We say that this is analogous to a car. The physical car has to be there. For the car to move, there must be fuel, will be petrol, electricity, or gas. And lastly, somebody to maneuver the car either remotely for driverless cars or locally. The first is called the hardware, the second, the software, and the third, the peoplesware, or the professionals. This is illustrated in Fig 1. If you look at the Fig 1, you see the ones in violet color. We call this CPU, Central Processing Unit, that contains the primary storage, or what we call the internal memories. You have the secondary storage, which we call the external memories. You have the I/O unit, the input-output unit. Then you have, for each, the application software being fed to the secondary memory, while the operating system softwares are resident in the CPU. Then, of course, you see the person using that. And the line at the center is called the system bus. We will see exactly what they mean as we go on. Now, this central processing unit consists essentially of four basic subsystems: the memory unit, the arithmetic logic unit, the control unit, and the clock. The operation of these subunits making up the CPU is closely related. The ALU, that is the arithmetic logic unit, is composed of electronic circuits that perform the processor's computational and logical functions. When we say computational functions, we are looking at the addition, subtraction, and when we look at the logical functions, we are looking at comparisons. The control unit is responsible primarily for the movement of data and instructions to and from the CPU registers, and for controlling the arithmetic logic unit. As program instructions and data are needed, they are moved from the primary storage to registers by the control unit. The control unit examines incoming instructions to determine how they should be processed and routes computational and logical instructions to the arithmetic and logic unit for processing. This control unit itself processes data movement instructions to and from primary storage, secondary storage, and input-output devices. A small set of temporary storage locations called cells is located within the CPU. The cells are called registers and can typically hold a single instruction or data item. Registers are used to store data or instructions that are not needed immediately, quickly, or frequently. In some computers, all the 4 units may be contained in a single integrated circuit chip. This chip is called a microprocessor or the brain of the computer. In our past lectures, we've mentioned these microprocessors and their calibers. It provides all the control, processing, and computing power required in all types of applications. The units interconnect by means of the system bus. The system bus is a set of parallel communication lines that serves as the primary pathway for data transmission among computer system devices. The capacity of these communication lines is a critical factor in the overall operation and performance of the computer. So let's look at the memory unit as attached to the CPU. The store, otherwise known as the memory, holds the data and instructions of the program which have been fed into the CPU via the input unit. It also holds the permanently stored program, otherwise known as the operating system program, that permits the operation of the computer system immediately after switch on. Memory values are usually expressed in megabytes or gigabytes. The memory is of 2 types. I've seen the block diagram. The primary, otherwise known as the internal memory, and the secondary, otherwise known as the external memory. Now, let's quickly look at the primary memories. So, primary memory consists of cells that host programs and associated data that are currently being executed by the computer. It is usually referred to as the main memory. These include the random access memory, otherwise known as RAM, and the read-only memory, otherwise known as ROM. ROM is a special memory designed to store permanently in the system the control sequence and programs that direct the CPU. Information is normally entered into the ROM during the manufacturing process and cannot be altered without destroying the memory. ROM can only be read from and not written into. That is why it is called read-only memory. One special feature of the ROM is that it is non-volatile. That is, it does not forget its content when the power is removed. In other words, there is an internal battery that constantly powers the ROM chip. Programs permanently stored in the ROM are called the firmware. On the other one, RAM, which is the random access memory, is used as a workspace for storing temporary data and the results of calculations during program execution. It is regarded as a volatile memory in the sense that it loses every information stored in it when the power fails. And the question is, how do you take care of this problem when working with your computer so that your data you are going to use will not be lost permanently? So we expect you to answer that in our comment section and follow in the next lecture so that that question can be answered. Then, the higher the random access memory capacity, the more the processing capability of the computer. In other words, when you want to buy a computer, you have to know the capacity of the RAM and know that the higher the capacity, the better processing capability of your computer. Then, let's get back a bit to ROM. Over time, the read-only memory had been modernized, and the first set of modernized one is called the PROM. So, say a PROM is a ROM in which information may be stored or programmed by the user. Once programmed, the content cannot be altered. And another improvement on this gave rise to what is known as EEPROM, that is erasable, programmable, read-only memory. This is a PROM in which the content can be erased and reprogrammed by the user with a new data. Memory erasure usually requires a special process, such as exposing it to intense ultraviolet radiation. So, next lecture, we'll be looking at the external memory. By then, we get to know those things you are more familiar with. Thank you for listening.